Past Cure hopes to combine third-person shooting to tell a memorable story with horror and supernatural elements. You play as Ethan Mars.
That'll be $2, sir.
Jason! Jason!
I mean Ian, who has lost his memory, and this sets him on a path to solve many of the game's mysteries. There are a lot of cutscenes in this game, and the game uses it as its main means to tell its story. The cutscenes are one of the game's strengths. They are enjoyable to watch, and when the gameplay finally really kicks in, they're appropriately short as to not hurt the pacing with the gameplay. Facial animations and some very zombie-like eyes can cause B-movie laughs, but I don't feel like they hurt some of the really good imagery that's presented in some of the more creepier and supernatural-like cutscenes. While I did enjoy the premise and the journey of the story, I did feel like the game lacked in delivering any answers to the player. The game continually adds more questions. While I'm happy they didn't use overlong exposition scenes, I do think the game needed more reveals and explaining. I did feel like the narrative was building to a plot twist that would recontextualize the story, both shocking me and making me rethink the experience I just had. By the time the story ended, I was left confused and wondering if I had missed something. And maybe I did miss something. While I don't think the game does a good job in revealing its mysteries, or in many cases never revealing them, I did find the journey good enough to follow that breadcrumb trail. Just don't expect that trail to end up leading to anywhere, but know that you'll probably enjoy it along the way. The game is heavily focused on its narrative with minimal gameplay until about Chapter 3. Chapters 1 and 2 have minimal gameplay and focus on showing you a lot of cutscenes to set the stage with the story and the mysteries of the narrative. Chapter 3 is used as a means to show some supernatural elements while effectively giving you a tutorial on combat and powers within the game. Ian has the ability to use projection so he can move outside of his body and go about the room. This will allow him to see highlighted objects and enemies in the environment. He can use this ability to flip switches to progress through the level, or he can disable a security camera. I find this ability really good in using for situational awareness as it highlights the enemies and then it shows their cone-like field of vision. Ian's other ability is slow-mo. This will aid in the stealth sequences as you'll be able to crouch walk faster while in slow-mo, and it can help in the gun combat to be able to pull off some good headshots. Following Chapter 3, the gameplay really kicks in Chapter 4 and you're treated to many areas with optional stealth and gunfight. The stealth kills are satisfying, but I do find the crouch walk to feel and look really clunky. The gun combat is good, the enemies are really dumb, but enjoyable to kill as they have two modes. They either stand still and shoot at you, or they charge at you, or in some cases there are individuals with sunglasses who will just charge at you and try to get you with the old fisticuffs. You get access to a few weapons like handguns and an SMG. I found myself using the Desert Eagle to pick off enemies from afar and then the SMG when they get close. The controls are improved from the private beta, resulting in improved gunplay, but I do feel like they could be a tad smoother. I appreciate that many sections of the game have optional stealth and not instant fail stealth sections, as I find instant fail stealth sections an insult to the player's intelligence. Just let me adapt to the situations. Don't fail me for getting caught. It's an old type of level design that really should be reserved for, say, optional side missions or challenge missions. Or personally, just let that level design die. So let's get into some of the areas that need improvement with this game. The game starts out with a brief gameplay sequence that involves with you going into rooms, waiting for a door to open, and then shooting an enemy as you move to another room to wait for some doors to open as you shoot an enemy, and then you move to another room for some doors to open, and then you shoot another enemy. This section goes on for far too long, and I wish it was cut in half because it gets tedious really quick.
Stop doing that!
I encountered one sound bug in Chapter 3 where the subtitles played, but I didn't hear anyone talking. The game did stutter from time to time, but that didn't really kill the experience. I found aiming around corners odd with the double aim reticules, one to show you where you point, and the other to actually show you where you're gonna hit. Since the game didn't have a cover system, I couldn't really tell how far out of cover I needed to be able to land my hits. I do feel like a cover system would have aided in the shooting. I mean, he's shown in cover at many points in the cutscenes, so the animation is there. To the game's credit, you do pop up when crouched behind a mid-waist piece of cover, but I prefer a sticky cover system to be able to adapt to all type of environments. The game needed more guns to use. You get 2 handguns and an SMG. There's a shotgun that's shown in a cutscene by an enemy in Chapter 4, but when you kill him, he doesn't drop the gun. You can use the shotgun near the end of the game, and I guess I can understand why they didn't let you use it early on, as it has some serious range and it's great at taking out enemies. Nonetheless, I do think more weapons would have aided in the variety in the game. While I enjoyed many of the optional stealth parts, the game does have one large section dedicated to an instant fail section, where if you get spotted, it's game over. Like I said before, these are annoying, and thankfully I only failed this section a couple times, but the fact that it is in there, it's annoying because prior to this you were doing all the action and you had optional stealth, so you were able to adapt to your situations. And it was good too, because one thing that was smart that the game was doing prior to this is that if you were caught, then there would be more guards in the room, so you'd have to contend with more guys. Hence, you would have to adapt to your situation. I like that, and it's rewarding because when you see the other guys show up because you got caught, you're like, oh, I screwed up. Maybe I'll go back and replay this section and see if I can go through it without getting caught. I like that aspect. And on top of that, with the stealth stuff, it's a little bit broken because at many times, if the enemy will get just a small glimpse of you, they'll come running at you, but the game isn't built for you to move really fast. The movement's kind of clunky, so you aren't able to kind of just skedaddle out of there. They'll run over and they'll catch you, and if you don't have a lot of slow-mo, you can't really crouch, zoom past them and get to cover. So in many instances, this causes you to get caught, and the stealth system can feel a little broken at times because of this. I did have a funny moment where I pulled off a stealth kill and it just didn't register the first time, so I had to get him again. I have to praise the game on this long section full of atmosphere and puzzles with minimal combat. There's a level that you encounter late in the game that's one of the game's best levels. You explore this creepy and dark area with some really good visual imagery. Effectively, you're in a nightmare. You get to use your projection powers to help you unlock doors and solve a variety of puzzles along the way. Along with that, you have to contend with enemies while avoiding them because you don't have a weapon. I really enjoyed this level and I wish there were more of them in the game. I do think that the game should have had at least 2 or 3 more sections like this. For most of the game, it feels like a story-driven action game with supernatural elements. This one level adds horror to the game, and I wish this permeated the experience. I do feel like it was a missed opportunity to not have more stages like this. And the big thing with that is too, is it kind of changes how you think about the game when you're in a level like this. So since you can't kill enemies and you're solving puzzles, it shifts the game a bit, which is something that I like, is that it makes the character feel vulnerable now. Whereas when you're in the shooting sections, you feel empowered, like you do in many video games. You feel very empowered. And it would have been a good ebb and flow to kind of switch between this, because then you would really appreciate those shooting sections, especially when you have a gun, when you were just in a section that didn't have a gun. I do feel like the projection powers were used in a very basic way. Use it to flip a switch or disable a camera. I do think it would have been cool to be able to interact with more objects in the environment. Maybe use it to cause some accidental kills on your foes, or maybe allow you to take over someone's body and then start attacking his allies. Lastly, the game has 2 boss fights. The first one was okay and just a glorified bullet sponge enemy. The second one is better and pretty much follows the traditional rule of 3 for a boss fight, and then has some variety to it. I do like how you have to use your guns in conjunction with your powers to defeat the bad guy. My problem is that it just takes a bit too long to defeat this boss, and there's no mid-boss checkpoints, so this can get really annoying at certain parts in the boss fight. One in particular is he likes to throw these large rocks at you, and essentially when he starts throwing them at you, you have to shoot them. The problem is that there were many instances where I would shoot the rocks and they wouldn't register, thus I would get hit. And it's not like you take a little bit of damage, you almost lose a full health bar from this. So if you don't have a full health bar going in to him hitting you, you're dead instantly. And this can get really annoying because he uses this twice throughout the fight.
Ass!
Yes, this game has many flaws and can be rough around the edges. And even with all that, I would say give this game a try, but give this game a try on a sale. And if you're really cautious about it, I'd say wait for a deep sale. But I do think it is something interesting and ambitious to see that an 8-man team of indie developers tried to make essentially a AAA experience that's very story-driven. And I think that is something to be commended, because there are aspects of this game that I do enjoy. I just feel like there are many spots that do need to be more ironed out. And I think a lower price point, because right now it's going for $30, if you get it on a sale, I think it kind of changes people's expectations a little bit on the game, and I think they'd be more welcoming to this experience to be like, oh, okay, there are some rough edges to this game, but I can also see some of the good bits. So, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed my video, check out some of my other ones, and I'll see you next time.